So I've had quite a few people contact and message me about desensitizing, and one of the most common questions that I'm getting is, when should my horse's feet be moving and when should they not be moving? And the answer to that is really, it depends. You see, there's two types of desensitizing that we do. We do static desensitizing, and that's more of the traditional desensitizing, where we have our pony standing still and we start applying pressure, making commotion, and our expectation is that our pony is going to stand nice and still while we're applying pressure, while we're desensitizing. Now, there's also what we call active desensitizing. And active desensitizing is a little bit different. When we're doing active desensitizing, the goal is actually to have our horse move their feet in a calm, quiet, methodical manner while we're applying pressure and desensitizing our pony. And so that's what we're going to be working on today. So I believe that it's good to teach our horses how to stand still and deal with pressure. But remember, everything we teach on the ground needs to have a practical application to when we're riding, right? And so when you're riding, typically your horse's feet are moving, right? You're going somewhere, you're going down the trail, you're doing some flat work, you're working in the arena, you're doing some exercises, maneuvers. Your pony's feet, 9 times out of 10 when you're riding, they're gonna be moving. So it's not as if your pony's gonna stand perfectly still and that plastic bag is gonna whip right under his feet at that angle that you've been practicing over and over again. That's not the case. Chances are your pony's gonna be walking from point A to point B, something comes up and boogers your pony, and your pony freaks out, and it catches us off guard because we say, wait a minute, I've done all of this desensitizing and I've worked with my pony. Why did he overreact to that? Well, the answer is, it's completely different when our pony's feet are moving. So it doesn't do us good to just desensitize while our pony is standing still. We want to make sure that we desensitize also while our horse's feet are moving. And so it's important to recognize that just because your horse's feet are moving while we're doing the active desensitizing, it doesn't mean that your horse is nervous. Now, there's some signs that we'll look for to make sure that a horse is quieting down, that they're comfortable, that they're not anxious. We'll look for the way that they move their feet to be nice and quiet and relaxed, and that's the key. Because when we're riding and we're going down the trail, we want our horses to keep their focus on whatever they're doing and to quietly and methodically continue to move their feet in spite of whatever scary thing is coming their way. So that's what we're going to be working on this afternoon. Is we're going to be doing some desensitizing while we're moving, active desensitizing. So anytime that you're going to do active desensitizing with your horse, you want to make sure that you've already done the basic static desensitizing, meaning as our horse is standing still, that they've been taught how to deal with different pressures. We want to make sure that they're relatively calm and relaxed with that before we go on and have them move their feet while we're desensitizing them. So I'm just going to kind of go through, make sure that on both sides that he's doing pretty well here. And again, I just want to graze my trainer all over his body. I'm going to go over the back end here, over the saddle. I might come up under the barrel here, might go back to that flank and see how he does there. Come up underneath the girth, the forearm, over the top of the neck. I really want to make sure that I do a thorough job of going through and making sure that he's okay. Let me go ahead and make a little bit of commotion beside him. Good pony. And we can see that he's doing pretty well with that. So now that I know that my pony's doing well with the static desensitizing, I'm going to go ahead and start my active desensitizing, okay? So when I start my active desensitizing, the way that I like to start is, first, I'm going to ask my pony to come in towards me, okay? Once my pony starts moving, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start applying pressure. Now you see how he kind of planted his feet and he stopped moving here, okay? what my goal is I'm going to gently apply pressure and ask him to move into the pressure. There. I'm going to take a deep breath, let him know that he did a good job. Now, you might have noticed that he immediately planted his feet as soon as I started desensitizing. And that's not because he's being bad. It's because that's how we've done desensitizing with him over and over again. It's been the expectation that when I apply pressure, that he stands still and he relaxes. And so it was a little bit confusing for him. You could see he kind of raised up his head. He's like, I'm not quite sure what he's asking me to do here. Planted his feet, but I just kind of worked him through it, maintained pressure on the line, and had him move into the pressure. So, excuse me. So before I go any further, what I'm looking for is to see more fluidity in his feet where he's just moving nice and quiet and giving to that pressure while I'm applying pressure in front of him here, okay? So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start applying pressure in front, and I'm going to ask him to walk in. That was much better. I'm going to take a nice big deep breath and rub him. So now that he's done it a couple times, I'm going to have him continue to move as I apply pressure. So here we go. I'm going to apply pressure here. I'm just going to turn him. Good, I like that. You can see he's kind of freeing up his feet some here. Still not quite sure, but he's doing well. I like what I'm seeing. Very good. Now you see, he's still a little bit apprehensive. I'm waiting for him to kind of loosen up here and see a little bit more fluid movement where I'm just pulling. There we go. I'm pulling lightly and he's giving right into the pressure here. There, I like that. I'm going to go ahead and give him a rub there. I'm just going to maintain pressure here. There, he's walking right into it. Nice and quiet, relaxed. I'm going to give him a rub, let him know that he's made some really good decisions there. And see, he made some good choices. We saw some progress. I'm going to move on. You don't want to make the mistake of schooling. If your pony is making progress, go ahead and move on. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that there's anything wrong with repetition, but repetition is different from constant schooling. You know, tomorrow we'll go over this again, and the next day, and the next day. But in any session, once it looks like my pony's got it, I'm not going to keep drilling him on the same thing. We're going to move on to whatever we're working on next. Okay, so the next part of active desensitizing so the next part of active desensitizing is going to be, I'm going to send my pony around me, and as I'm sending him around me, I'm going to go ahead and apply pressure. Again, this is going to be a little bit confusing for him because he's not going to be accustomed to me sending him and applying pressure at the same time. Typically, when we send our pony, if we need to apply pressure to encourage them to go forward, the moment they go forward, we release that pressure to let them know that they made a good choice, a good decision. And so it's going to take a little bit of thought and adaptation on his part to kind of figure out what I'm doing. And so that means that I have to be patient and give him a chance to figure things out as we work through this. So I'm going to go ahead and send him out, and I am using my Steady Stick Mini, which I love to use for exercises like this because I'm doing this desensitizing kind of in close quarters here, and I don't have a whole lot of room for a larger stick, and so it just kind of makes it a little bit easier for me to apply pressure without accidentally whacking him or getting tangled up in my tools or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and send him out here. I'm going to offer him to go. Good pony. Good boy. And now here's what he's going to have to figure out, because as he's moving out here, I'm going to start applying pressure. See him start to kind of slow down, and he came to a stop, and he's saying, you know, what's going on here? I'm going to go ahead and ask him to keep moving. Good. I'm taking a nice, big, deep breath. And again, he's just being careful. He says, usually I'm supposed to stand still while this is going on. And that's true. But for this exercise, I want to teach him how to continue to move his feet nice and quietly while we're desensitizing. I'm going to ask him to keep moving. Good boy. And you notice when I ask him to move, I'm just really showing him the way with my left hand, and then following it up with some clucking and kissing if need be. Good boy. So my goal here, just like we were doing when we were asking him to come into the pressure, is I want him to be fluid and have a little bit of cadence in his steps. And it looks like we're starting to get there. He's not stopping as much. Good boy. Up, little stop there. I'm going to push him forward. So you can see that he's starting to relax. He's moving forward more consistently. He's not trying to stop as much. I'm going to go ahead, take a deep breath, let him know that he made some really good decisions there. Okay, so I'm going to go right back to it one more time. I'm going to offer him the direction to go in. Good boy. And he's doing this really, really well. I'm very pleased with how he's doing with this. I'm going to go ahead and start applying pressure. I'm going to keep sending him forward. Good boy. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and have him walk right into the pressure here. Take a nice big deep breath. And I'm going to rub my pony, let him know he's made some awesome choices here. Okay, so now that I know that my pony's doing relatively well with pressure from a distance, I'm going to go ahead and give him an opportunity to move around, and I'm going to make direct contact with my steady stick here as I desensitize him. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him to walk out. And as he's walking here, you see him start to slow down here. I'm going to keep him moving. Again, he's confused. He says, this isn't what we're supposed to be doing. I'm going to keep asking him to move around here. Good pony. There, you see he's starting to free up and not stop as much. Still unsure, but you can see his confidence starting to build here. Good boy. So I'm just going to continue to apply pressure over him as he moves here. And I like that he's moving a little bit more freely. He's walking a little bit faster. I'm going to take a nice big deep breath here and let him know that he's made some really good choices here. What a pony. Good boy. Okay, here we go. Right back to it. So you can see now he's getting more comfortable with the pressure directly on his body while his feet are moving. Very good. What a pony. Good job. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my pony to walk while I apply overhead pressure while I'm desensitizing over his head. Okay, so here we go. He's not quite sure of this. There, good boy. See that head's up pretty high here. Just going to continue to see if I can encourage him to go forward. There, good boy. So he took a few good steps forward. I decided that that was probably a good point to take away some pressure, let him know that he's got the right idea by moving into the pressure. Again, it's not that he's being bad. It's just that typically when we're desensitizing, he's used to standing still. So he thinks that something's up, or maybe I'm trying to trick him, or there's something fishy going on. And I'm just trying to make sure he understands that's not the case. You can continue to walk on comfortably, quietly, move on with confidence. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him again. I'm going to start, apply pressure overhead. There, good boy. I like that. Much better here. I'm going to go ahead and take a nice big deep breath and let him know that he's made some really good choices. Good boy. So the last thing that I'm going to do with my pony with this active desensitizing is I'm going to ask my pony to shoulder over while I'm applying pressure. And just to demonstrate, shouldering over is when I ask my pony to move his shoulder laterally away from me, which is an important exercise to teach our pony to begin to soften and to teach them some suppleness throughout their body. And so what I want to do is I'm going to actually start to apply pressure as he's picking up that shoulder and moving it over. And what I mean by that, again, is this inside foot needs to cross over that outside foot. So when I apply pressure here, I want him to actually cross over there, and then I'll take the pressure away. But in this case, I'm going to continue to ask him to do it repeatedly as I apply pressure. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to ask him to shoulder over there. Good pony. I'm going to get him to shoulder over a couple more crosses, and now I'm going to start applying pressure. There. Again, a little hesitant. He's not quite sure, but he's given a lot of good effort. I'm going to push that shoulder over. There. And I'm looking for him to begin to relax from this pressure. Get him to move out a little bit more fluid, a little softer. You can see him scramble right there. I'm just going to keep this up there until he softens from me in a nice, quiet manner, which he did right there. So I'm going to go right back to it. I'm going to go ahead and ask him to move that shoulder away from me. Good boy. And I'm going to start to apply some pressure. Very nice. So much better looking here. Good. I like that. I'm going to take the pressure away. Take a nice big deep breath. Yeah, good job. Let my pony know that he made a good choice there. It's important to go through these steps pretty methodically and make sure that your pony's doing them well. You know, we started out with having our pony follow into the pressure, okay? Then we started with sending our horse while we were applying pressure. Then we did pressure overhead as we were continuing to send our horse. We also did pressure as we were going over the middle of our pony's back and saddle and going ahead and touching him directly with the mini stick. But lastly, we applied pressure while he was moving that shoulder. And that's super important because being able to control that shoulder is a critical part of developing a soft, safe, and steady horse. You want to be able to move and soften that shoulder. And as you move and soften that shoulder, there's other parts and components of your horse's body that are going to begin to soften and follow as well. And so if you get into trouble while you're riding and your pony becomes a little bit frightened of maybe something, a plastic bag or tarp or whatever commotion's going on, a good idea is to begin to just pick up your pony's shoulder and start to ask them to soften over for you. Because what's happening when you do that is you're getting your pony to think about where he's very specifically placing his feet. And so that crossing of the feet to move that shoulder over, that requires some real intentional thought from your horse. And what happens is you're going to help to take your horse's mind off of whatever the pressure is and to be a little bit more thoughtful and methodical about where he's placing his feet. And if you do that, you're going to be much better off as to if you just let your pony have his head and scramble his feet wherever they want to scramble their feet. So keep that in mind. You know, being intentional about where you place your pony's feet is an important part of establishing leadership with your horse. And so the more that you move your horse's feet into safe places in methodical, intentional, purposeful ways, your horse is going to begin to trust you more and more as a suitable and fit leader.